who's giving me money to sign this bill? They didn't look. Now, wait a minute. You want to talk
You are
remedies?
giving a pass here to the legislature. That's unbelievable.
No, absolutely untrue. But the problem in Albany is legal corruption. The problem with this report is it decided to pick on stuff which is offensive,
It sounds
bad,
like fraud.
and
what they're
Isn't
doing.
this a step in the right direction to be able to identify and try
it's
to
a step
really?
backwards
Really?
because the problem is so large. The big problem is the raising of the $30 million, which is what the governor's done. You think that the same people who are giving the legislature $40 and are giving him $400 don't have the same motives? If they're bad when they're there at the legislature, they're bad in the executive
So you're
branch.
saying a pox on all the chambers, but it
No.
doesn't take away from what they found.
I'm saying now I'll talk remedy, that if you're going to talk remedy, find the remedy that shuts the money down. And that's public financing, and
Without
everybody
putting names to it, Richard,
knows it.
did you know people who did the equivalent of these storefronts? I mean, we saw
Wait a
Spada
minute.
doing one in the
Hold
Bronx
it.
for crying out loud.
That storefront was a contract approved by the governor's office. What are you
Do
talking
you
about?
think the governor thought for a second there'd be one little old lady at the front table, and then the other two addresses would be private homes?
The governor's job is to not put out
Assume the
contracts.
legislators are crooks?
No, not assume them. Check it out. What do you have a governor for?
Anthony,
to sign
Anthony,
anything
please.
he sent?
You're on the outside of this here, but you deal with this, okay? I'm not asking you to name clients, let alone electeds. But, I mean, they call it the Independence Party, basically, you know, more than a front for the GOP, and more than just a front here that they're moving money around. I mean, this did not mince words, this report. Is, from your experience, did they get it right?
I think that they cherry-picked, as the Assemblyman said, I think they cherry-picked specific people to go after, okay, and they probably uncovered some corruption, which I'm sure the
They said it was bipartisan here, so it wasn't like they picked on one
sure
part.
they said it was bipartisan. We don't know who these people are that gave money to this particular Albany
Because it would
storefront.
compromise the investigation, they said.
Correct,
But
but the real issue here is that, you know, public financing, candidly, I don't see it happening. We have it for, you know, the presidency, but I don't see people wanting to spend money, you know, taxpayer dollars in order to pay for these political campaigns.
There is a public financing system in New York City, isn't there?
It does, and that works, but I don't see that working statewide. I don't see something that may work in Suffolk County work in, you know, Chautauqua County.
How about just for the governor, this controller, and the attorney general? I think what you're putting your finger on is there's an objection of the Republican Senate to public financing, now joined into by some of the governor's people.
Well, I think it's
If
not
that's
just
the
Democrat,
remedy, we ought to
Republican.
go
You know what?
forward with it.
It's not.
I'll admit, Mr. Brodsky, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. Mr. Brodsky does follow this issue more than most. But I have to be honest, I think Mr. Brodsky is looking at the legislature as an admirable man the way it was when he was there. No. But it's not like that anymore.
Not make it sound
no,
like
no,
that.
I'm serious. No.
I didn't come close to saying that. What are you talking about?
So he wants to know why Governor Cuomo didn't focus more on the executive branch. I am saying to you, this commission did not go far enough. They pushed the letter of the law every single day. The district attorney turns a blind eye in Albany. What happened to David Soares, who went after Alan Hevesy?
Explain how it works to the layperson out
It
there
depends on
about
what it
whether
is.
it's the assemblyman, state
It
senate.
depends on what it is. The biggest
The phony
scam they have
storefront
going.
thing, because we've seen that going.
Okay, well, the biggest scam they have going is you're an elected official, you get your cousin to start a nonprofit organization, you siphon state money through your budget items through to that nonprofit, and they make a lot of money.
That's already criminal.
Okay, but what I'm saying to you is that the things that are criminal and non-criminal,
The big
they're
deals,
pushing.
the things that matter in the lives of New Yorkers are when big interests like the real estate interests come in and define what the rent laws are going to be
Right,
like.
but you want to focus on
That's-
the mass picture.
Yeah.
What I'm saying right now
That's
is
exactly right.
Okay, but let's focus on the crooks right now that are in the legislature.
You've been diverted from the real problem. The real problem isn't the individual crooks. They're terrible. They should go to jail, all that stuff. Legislators too. The real problem is $30 million worth of money being dumped on one candidate, and no one's saying we're going to even take a look at that.
Fair enough. But is part of it that the laws or the lack of enforcement, is it that the laws aren't stringent enough or that there's no teeth to enforce it?
Both of those are problems. But when you refuse to examine the executive branch and pretend that the problem, which is real, is only a legislative problem.
But you know what? No, it's
You're
not-
misleading
not
the
just-
people of the
it's not
state.
just
governor is going to open up a full investigative
No,
branch
I'm not asking
on their
for the
own
governor to
on
do
their
it.
own administration.
You say he should do it instead of just waving your arms and yelling it's terrible.
You're making valid points. But remember David Soares? Remember David Soares? He came in on a white knight in shining armor, district attorney, threw Alan
Why's it gotta
Hevesy,
be white,
threw
though?
Alan Hevesy in jail, showed up himself for just what happened since the Hevesy trial. He got caught up in a situation with his mistress. He's gone away. Am I saying something that's not true?
You're saying something that's cosmically irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
the
The
fact
district attorney
for a good sound
that
like
should
that.
go after corruption, that's irrelevant.
It's legal corruption, not the
Some of
existing
it is, some
criminal
of it
stuff.
isn't.
And that's the
this
big
brings
problem.
me to maybe the most frustrating part, which is this commission doesn't have the power to turn any of these proposals into law, or even additional proposals that you want to see enacted into law. That has to be voted on by the legislature and signed by the governor. What do you think the odds are that the legislature is going to approve these new restrictions on their own behavior and the governor is going to sign it into law?
Wait a minute. It should be the new legislation would restrict the governor.
Right.
Okay. He's not for it.
Right.
The assembly is for it. The Senate's not.
Can I just say, though, divest yourself for 1 second. You're sitting at home and you're watching this. Say, time out. We have a commission that's having hidden cameras on lawmakers to find some sham outfits that they're running.
Cameras
and
weren't
then
on lawmakers. It was on a storefront.
Doesn't
for-
matter.
Okay.
I think Richard's right. It's
Yeah,
the court of
you're
public
missing the
opinion.
optics of this.
No, I am not. Not only am I not missing the
It's doing
optics,
it. The
the
intent
governor and
is
you
to
are in agreement.
shame. The intent is to shame, and
Yeah.
it's working.
The
And
court-
he's winning in the court
And
of
by
public
the way, he's
opinion.
up
and
for
in
election
optics.
next year.
The
Just
Andrew,
coincidental.
the
Yeah.
Andrew
Use this as an election
Cuomo,
issue.
Richard French machine is in full cry.
Wow.
So you're going to replace the lieutenant governor?
Yeah, well, don't do that to me. I thought you liked me. But my point, though, then comes down to, if the legislature were smart, Richard, what would they say instead of being obstructionary or not moving this along?
How can you get it so wrong? The assembly
God.
has repeatedly said and led the fight for this. And you say the legislature because that's the headline.
assembly has led the fight
you
for
bet.
this?
We've passed campaign finance annually for the last 5 or
Richard,
6 years.
to be fair, he did say the legislature, which includes the state senate, which is run by Republicans and
That's
by
your
this
idea of
cross.
fair?
No. I'm saying that first of all, Richard was talking about reform overall getting through Albany and through the entire legislature. What if we appeal to the better angels of everybody's nature in Albany and somehow manage to get something through both chambers of the
You don't have
legislature?
the governor in support of campaign finance
But
now.
isn't something better than nothing?
Yes. And all I want to do is to have this, instead of being a screeching, yelling session about how awful the legislature is, to look at what the actual problem is, which is in the legislature and it's in the governor's office. And when you get a result like this,
Yeah.
you know that there's
You live
something
in the
here.
real world, Richard. I'll give you that, unlike some. The real world is the governor's running for re-election next year. The governor can hold up a picture of Pedro Espada. He doesn't have to really do much else. And say, by the way, remember the guy with the sushi? Remember Hurricane Espada? We found a whole other bunch
That's
of them.
your
And look at
fault.
what, that's my fault?
You're a journalist, last time I checked. Tell the truth.
But Richard, the point is, people believe the system is either without enforcement mechanisms or without the teeth for the enforcement. And people are going up to Albany that are not representing what we want of our lawmakers. And the governor does get a pass out of this, but nobody's accused him of
big
lining his
money-
pockets.
The big money is the legal corruption. It's what's influencing the outcome that affects the lives of everyday people. That's what we should be focused on.
But
That's
he
what the
is
Moreland
right
Commission didn't
when he
do.
says that us journalists are turning a blind eye. He is correct about that. And I'm talking about the legislature
Now
right
you
now.
help me?
No, I'm helping you now. I'm not on the
John,
legislature.
The public cares more, even though they shouldn't.
Every
maybe
journalist
not about
in
the
New
legal
York
corruption. They care
knows the
more.
corruption that goes on in Albany. A DA could walk in there and make a first-year law student could go to Albany and walk out with 40 indictments easily of elected officials. Easily.
Stop it.
When we come back, if Chris Chase hasn't run out of the building by now, the former congressman will join us. And the president spoke out on health care reform, and he wasn't as contrite as the last time we heard him. We'll tell you why and where it goes from here. Stay with us.